As the modern Planet of the Apes films have gone on longer and longer, more and more fans have asked one question in particular about the future of the franchise. Will these movies eventually lead to a remake or retelling of the original 1968 classic? It's something that I've addressed multiple times on my channel, but something I have not discussed are the actors who I think would be a good fit for the original film's characters if they were to be recast. Yes, I am here to fan cast a modern day Planet of the Apes remake. If you like what I do here and want to show your support, be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. Enjoy the video. Hey everybody, and welcome to Ape Nation, your number one source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and today we are doing something a little bit different than usual on the channel, but something that I thought would be pretty fun. I am going to be fan casting a remake of the original 1968 Planet of the Apes, one that would take place in the rebooted series of movies, which includes Rise, Dawn, War, and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, I know that the mere mention of remaking the original film is already a big point of contention for many fans, and I get it. But personally, I think that bringing this franchise full circle and building up to an eventual retelling of the original story about a group of astronauts looking for a better world crash landing on future Earth isn't just an exciting idea with a lot of potential, but I also think it's kind of an inevitability. And while yes, there have definitely been some truly awful remakes of beloved classics, with Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes being a common target for the anti-remake sentiment, there have also been some really great ones as well, such as David Cronenberg's The Fly, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, or Jon Favreau's Jungle Book. Even still, I get why many fans would be hesitant towards seeing the original film's story be redone in this new Apes timeline. However, I think that the consistency and quality of the four modern films, as well as the filmmakers' clear amount of respect for the original series, warrants more than enough goodwill in trusting them to be able to pull it off. There are 5 characters from the original film that I picked to cast, and these are essentially just the most significant roles in the story, and they are Taylor, Cornelius, Zira, Nova, and Dr. Zaius. I know some of you might be wondering, what about Dodge and Landon, or even Lucius or Stewart, but I didn't want to waste too much time on such small characters that truthfully could probably be played by anybody. I could spend some time talking about who would be fun to see just in addition to some of these other castings, but really I don't think it would be worth much of my time. So I am just going to be sticking to the 5 main characters. How this is going to work is I will go through each character, give my short list of actors that I narrowed it down to, and then give my actual final pick and break down why I went with them for the role. Please keep in mind that these are all just my personal opinions. I am not saying that my picks are the absolute number one choices for these roles, or that this is exactly how they should approach this remake, assuming it were to ever actually happen. These are just my choices based on how I have always viewed these characters and how I would envision a modern retelling of Planet of the Apes. And depending on how this hypothetical remake were to be handled, some of these characters might be cut or even replaced by someone else. Instead of a group of 3 men in space traveling with a woman, it could be reversed and be about 3 women traveling with 1 man. Or all of the supporting astronaut crew could be removed entirely and it could be about just 1 guy crash landing on future Earth. Or maybe a duo of a man and a woman, like a husband-wife astronaut team or something. I have no idea. There could also be new ape characters introduced instead of just the ones we know from the original. There could be other talking humans as an element of the story. Regardless of how they reimagine it for the new timeline, I'm sticking to these 5 characters as they currently are and the roles they currently play in the story. I should also note that the original actors' looks had absolutely zero bearing on my choices here, so before you comment down below that the actors I pick look nothing like Charlton Heston or Linda Harrison or anything along those lines, sorry, but this just might not be the fan casting video for you. And also, when it comes to the ape characters, well, they're apes, so it really doesn't matter either way. So with all of that down and out of the way, let's kick things off with the lead of the astronaut crew himself and the main protagonist of Planet of the Apes, George Taylor. I managed to whittle it down to a short list of 4 different actors, one of which I decided is ultimately my choice, but the first 3 actors I was really seriously considering for this role are Alexander Skarsgård, Chris Pine, and Matthew McConaughey. When it comes to these 3 actors, I think each of them have a lot to offer in a role like this. They've all shown that they have the charisma for what's needed for this character, and have all also proven themselves as strong, engaging leading men. I think an actor like Alexander Skarsgård especially has a ruggedness to him that would work wonders, and that Chris Pine exudes the intelligent and vulnerable side of Taylor. And then there's Matthew McConaughey, who already played a character who's a space explorer searching for a better world in Interstellar, who I think would thrive in a more post-apocalyptic, mythic version of that type of character. However, there was one other actor who I just could not get out of my head as the one choice that I would personally have for Taylor. And some of you might agree, some of you might not agree. That's probably going to be the case for most of my picks. But my choice for Taylor is Oscar Isaac. I think this guy was born to be a leading man, yet he has mostly only ever played supporting roles, but I think this is exactly the type of leading role that he would thrive in. I think Oscar Isaac is a fantastic actor. He's incredibly talented. He's incredibly charismatic. He has that gruffness. He has that grit to him that I think is necessary for a role like Taylor, but he can also be very vulnerable, and I think able to deliver a really compelling 21st century iteration of the character of Taylor. He looks like someone who could play a character who's very likable and charming and charismatic, but also maybe isn't necessarily the nicest or best all-around person, which is exactly what you want from Taylor. And he also just looks like someone, again, who could want more to life than what's on Earth and is fed up with humanity, yet still can be one of the most charming ones around when it comes down to it. I think he would be a perfect choice for a modern day iteration of a Planet of the Apes remake, regardless of what direction they take with it. If they do a new version of Taylor, I think he could fit that overall archetype, and that is why Oscar Isaac is my pick for Taylor.
That's about it. Tell me, though, does man, that marvel of the universe, that glorious paradox who sent me to the stars, still make war against his brother? Keep his neighbor's children starving?
The next character up is everyone's favorite chimpanzee from the original series, Cornelius. I had a lot of things that I was trying to consider when putting this list of actors together for this character, of course, because it would be a performance capture role this time instead of a makeup role with an actor wearing a costume and prosthetics and such. So I was really trying to think of actors who could bring a lot of the qualities to Cornelius and stuff that is similar to Roddy McDowall without trying to exactly replicate Roddy McDowall. And these are 3 of the actors that I whittled it down to before I will get to my 4th and final pick. These actors consist of Andrew Garfield, Colin Farrell, and Chiwetel Ejiofor. When it comes to these 3 actors in particular, I think what I was really looking for is someone who can be very charming and funny and heartfelt, while also very stern and emotionally vulnerable and intense when needed to. And as much as I think all 3 of these actors would do a really good job in this role for various different reasons, ultimately, my pick for a modern rebooted version of Cornelius is Alan Tudyk. This is an actor who is, I don't know if I'd say underrated, but he's not a big star. He's not a big name, but a lot of people love him, and I love him. I think he's a really, really wonderful actor. I think he's, of course, well known for what he did in the show Firefly. He's known for a lot of voice and TV work. He's, of course, known for his role in the Star Wars universe as K2SO, or even something like iRobot, which leads me to one of the things that works most in his favor. He has experience in the performance capture world. He's spent a lot of time doing those types of roles, so he already has that experience under his belt. He's also, I think, very underappreciated as a dramatic actor, and I think he's very versatile with what kind of performances he can give. He can be very, very funny, and I think a lot of people know him for being very funny, but he can also be very intense, and I think he can also be very emotionally real, but in a way that feels a bit more subtle than some other actors. I think his comedic timing in his charm paired with that ability to be very sincere and grounded does does make him perfect to me for the role of Cornelius. And also in a way, because of that, he feels to me like a perfect type of actor to follow an actor like Roddy McDowall. He feels not necessarily like a spiritual successor to him, but I can absolutely see some of those traits of Roddy McDowall in Alan Tudyk. And so for all of those reasons, Alan Tudyk is my choice for the role of Cornelius.
Cornelius, why do you insist on provoking him?
No creature can survive in the Forbidden Zone. I know, I've been there, I've seen it.
Then how do you account for me?
I don't. And I'm not going to try.
Next up, we have Zira, again, another one of these fan favorite characters. And so once again, I'm gonna give you my 3 choices that I was seriously considering before giving you my actual final pick at the end. But the 3 actors I was really considering for this role were Zoe Saldana, Kate Winslet, and Jessica Chastain. But there is one other actor who, once I really got fixated on the idea of them as Zira, I just couldn't think about anybody else in the role, and that would be Carrie Coon. Now, this is an actor who some of you might not know. I know some of you probably do, but for those who don't know her, some things you might have seen her in as of recently are the 2 most recent Ghostbusters films, as well as Avengers Infinity War, although her face wasn't in it. It was a performance capture role, which again, performance capture, she has some of that experience under her belt. She was Proxima Midnight in that film. More recently on the TV side of things, she was in The White Lotus and gave what I think was a really phenomenal performance. But it was her performance in the movie Gone Girl back in 2014, which is what made me first think of her for the role of Zira. It is a very different type of character, but more similar than you might realize. She has a very sharp energy that I think is incredibly important for Zira, and she has shown in multiple roles her range in being able to bring a wittiness, but also a compassionate, maternal, but also intense aura. And I think because of her range and her ability, I think she would be able to deliver what would probably be a slightly more intense version of Zira that still captures the essence of who the character is. So for all those reasons, Carrie Coon is my pick for Zira.
As an animal psychologist, I have found no physiological defect to explain why humans are mute.
Objection! Sustain!
Their speech organs are adequate. The flaw lies not in anatomy, but in the brain.
Objection! Sustain!
Sustain all objections, but face the truth.
Next up, we have the character of Nova. Now, I know some people might think that this is a pretty thankless role and that it doesn't really matter who you get, but I don't necessarily agree. I do think that there is a sense of almost childlike curiosity that's key to this character working, and also a need for someone who is able to be very physical and expressive. Again, I have 3 actors I'm going to name for you, and then my final pick at the end, and those 3 actors would be Ana de Armas, Nathalie Emmanuel, and Gal Gadot. I think that all the traits that I'm looking for have been pretty commonly seen in some of the performances from these actresses. Ana de Armas and Nathalie Emmanuel have often shown a really strong ability to emote with their eyes and have taken on some pretty physicality driven roles. And while I know a lot of people aren't exactly the biggest fan of Gal Gadot as an actress, I think her turn in the first Wonder Woman perfectly captured that innocence needed for Nova. And when paired with the right filmmaker and role, she can do some pretty solid work. That being said, there's one other actor who I think does this better than all 3, and on top of that is just a world-class actress overall, and that would be Alicia Vikander. And this is the first actor that I immediately thought of for this role, and once I thought of her, I just couldn't get it out of my head no matter how many other actresses I looked at and thought of for this character. She reminds me a lot of Freya Allan, in that Alicia Vikander has a look to her that just seems like the natural fit for the world of Planet of the Apes. And this is something that Wes Ball said about Freya Allan, but she gives me that same idea, that same overall vibe, if you will. And also just an actress of her talent, I think could bring a bit more depth to Nova if the character was given the opportunity to have a bit more depth to her in the writing. And she's also incredibly physical as an actor and can express a lot just through her eyes and subtle facial movements, especially in a movie like Ex Machina, which I think to date is her best role, and coincidentally also stars Oscar Isaac.
Everybody's busy. Can't wait for the night.
So because of all of those reasons, Alicia Vikander is my casting pick for Nova.
What's she pointing at?
This must be close to home for her. She knows it. Nova, no. Nova. Nova, you can't go there. It's not safe. Nova.
And finally, we have gotten to Dr. Zaius, the antagonist of the film. And this was, I think, the most fun character to cast because there's so many different angles you can take this character. There's a lot of really great veteran older actors that could step into this role, with 3 of them being Alfred Molina, John Malkovich, and Willem Dafoe. I think all 3 of them are fantastic actors that would thrive in a role like this, in a very sinister but charismatic, older, antagonistic politician type role. That said, I've seen these actors play that type of character in some way or another before, but there's one actor who eventually I realized would actually be the perfect choice for this character if they were to do a Planet of the Apes remake, and it's someone who we've already seen in the Planet of the Apes franchise before, but someone who I think a lot of fans have been clamoring to see come back to play another role. And I think you already know who I'm about to say. Of course, I am talking about Andy Serkis. I think that Andy Serkis returning for the role of Zaius would be about as perfect of a casting choice as it gets, while also having a little bit of fan service, but not in a way that's any sort of disservice to the film. I think he is the perfect age now to play this character, and it would be a great character for Andy Serkis to return to the franchise for, and not just a fun cameo or a one-off role. I also think it would give him a great opportunity to bring the same intensity and gravitas that he brought to Caesar to an antagonist role instead. And I think that Andy Serkis is such a versatile and talented actor that he could easily bring that needed sense of wisdom while also tapping more into his charisma that he wasn't necessarily able to bring out when playing the character of Caesar. I think he would be a great pick. I think it would be a lot of fun if the day ever were to come that they do a remake of Planet of the Apes and they announce Andy Serkis as Dr. Zaius, or maybe another one of the characters. I think that at the very least would quiet a lot of people that would be nervous about it. That is why Andy Serkis is my choice to play Dr. Zaius.
The Forbidden Zone was once a paradise. Your breed made a desert of it ages ago.
It still doesn't give me the why. A planet where apes evolved from men? There's got to be an answer.
Don't look for it, Taylor. You may not like what you find.
So to recap, my main cast of actors for a modern Planet of the Apes retelling: Oscar Isaac as Taylor, Alan Tudyk as Cornelius, Carrie Coon as Zira, Alicia Vikander as Nova, and Andy Serkis as Dr. Zaius. As for who could direct a film like this, there is one filmmaker who I think would be the absolute no-brainer #1 choice in my mind to put together a modern Planet of the Apes remake. It's someone who's been one of the pioneers of motion capture filmmaking for the last 2 decades, is an Academy Award winner, arguably the king of blockbusters, and one of my personal favorites, and that director is James Cameron. But since he's currently working on the next 3 Avatar movies until 2030, plus him having other passion projects to keep him busy after that, not to mention the guy is already in his 70s, there is probably a less than 0% chance that this would ever happen. So who else could do the job instead? Well, I actually made a video a little over a year ago giving you my top 10 directors who I would want to direct a Planet of the Apes movie, so if you want to hear some of my potential picks with some in-depth thoughts, I'd probably just go with one of them. But honestly, there are dozens of filmmakers today that I think could do a really great job with a Planet of the Apes remake, and the same could be said with the cast. These have all just been my personal picks, but I want to know what you guys think. Do you like my casting choices for a hypothetical Planet of the Apes remake, or do they not work for you? If not, let me know who you would want to cast in these roles, as well as who you might want to direct it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button. You can also join the Ape Nation Discord server for daily discussions about the franchise. And if you're interested in seeing more of my videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.